Hello class. In this video, we're going to start our unit on fractions, and we're going to focus on addition with unlike denominators. Remember, fractions have the numerator and the denominator. The top number is the numerator, the bottom number is the denominator. So we're going to work with different denominators today. But before we start, I want you to write in your notebook our heading, are your first name and last name, mathematics, your date, your period, and then the title of this video, addition with unlike denominators. Let's put that in our notebooks now. Now that we have that in there, let's look at a number. So here we have the fraction of 1 over 2 or 1/2 plus 3 over 4, which is pronounced 3/4. We can't add these together because our denominators are different, but we can change them by making them equivalent. There are different ways of finding what is a common denominator, but we're going to do the easiest way first, and that's by multiplying each fraction by the other fraction's denominator. So before I do that, I'm going to actually write the two fractions on the side. So I have 1 over 2 or 1/2. And then I'm going to put 3 over 4, which is 3/4. And I'm going to multiply them by the opposite. So for this fraction, the opposite denominator is 4. So I'm going to multiply it by 4. But remember, what I do to one side of the fraction, I need to do to the other. So if I multiply the denominator by 4, I need to multiply the numerator by 4. And when I do that, I get 1 times 4 is 1, and 2 times 4 is 8. I'm sorry. 1 times 4 is 4, not 1, sorry. And then on this one, the opposite denominator of this 4 is the 2. So if I multiply this denominator by 2, I need to multiply the numerator also by 2. And 3 times 2 is 6, and 4 times 2 is 8. So 3/4 is the same thing as 2/8. Now that these denominators are exactly the same, I have 8 and 8, I can add them. So I come back over here, and this 1/2, right, we change that to be 4/8. So I'm going to write the 4/8 underneath. Plus, right, because we're adding. And the 3/4 we change to be 6/8. So I'm going to rewrite that 6/8 here. Now that these denominators are the same, I can add them. So I can put this as 4 plus 6 over 8. And I know 4 plus 6 is 10. So I have this as 10 over 8 or 10/8, right? Now this is an improper fraction because my numerator is larger than my denominator. So I got to look how many wholes are there. Well, since my denominator is 8, okay, I can say that there's 8 pieces in a whole. So if I took 8 pieces out of there to make one whole, I'm left with 2 pieces. So I have 1 and 2/8. Then I also notice, hey, 2 and 8, I could divide both of them by 2. So I divide both of them by 2. My whole number stays the same, right? Because it's one whole. One whole is one whole. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. So my final answer is 1 and 1/4. So before I could add this, I had to find common denominators. So I found the 8. Right? And remember, what I do to one, I need to do to the top. Each fraction is different. That's why I could multiply different ones. But within the same fraction, what I do to one side, I need to do the other side to keep it balanced. Then after I add them, right, I see if I can simplify it. I could have divided it by 2 here and got 5/4 and then simplified it. I chose not to in this case. There's nothing wrong with that. You would still get the answer of 1 and 1/4. Okay, so the first thing is you find the common denominator, then you add, then you simplify. All right. We don't want to say reduced. I know that a lot of people use the word reduce. We're not reducing. The size stays actually the same. Okay, because if we drew this out, we would realize that if I put these pieces, if I put 2/8 together and 1/4, they're going to be the same. So we don't want to use the word reduced anymore. We want to use the word simplify. Okay. Because we don't want to say that we are making something smaller, because we're not. So pause this video now and write all of this work in your notebooks. Now that we have this done, let's look again for another problem. So here we have 3/8 plus 1/2. Now I wanted to write it this way because when we're typing, a lot of programs don't have the fractional lines. So how you would write the fraction is by using this forward slash with no spaces in between the number and the forward slash. That means fractions. So in other words, this here 3 forward slash is actually 3/8 or 3/8. And this 1 forward slash 2 actually means 1/2. I needed you to see this so that you could understand the way to type it, because that's how you would type it. If I had spaces in between, if I had another 1 here with a space and then this, that would mean a whole number 1. Okay. So again, we go back to rewriting it the way that we are comfortable in seeing it. Then I'm going to write these two fractions on the side. I have 3/8 and I have 1/2. Again, there are many different ways of finding a common denominator, which I will show you in class the other way. But the simplified way is multiplying each fraction by the opposite's denominator. So for this fraction, the opposite denominator is 2. So I'm going to multiply both my numerator and my denominator by 2. And 3 times 2 gives me 6. And 8 times 2 gives me 16. For this one, the opposite denominator for this 2 is the 8. So I'm going to multiply the numerator by 8 and the denominator by 8. So 1 times 8 is 8, and 2 times 8 is 16. Now that both of my denominators are the same, I could turn around and rewrite this. So the 3/8 now became the 6/16. I carry down the plus sign, and the 1/2 became the 8/16 or 8/16. Now I can add them, right? I can make it 6 plus 8/16 because they both have the same denominator. And I know 6 plus 8 gives me 14. So I have 14/16. Now I look and I check. My numerator is smaller than my denominator, so I don't have any whole numbers. But if I notice that they were both even numbers, all even numbers can be divided by 2. So I could check to see what numbers I could do. And you know what? I'm struggling, so all I could see is the 2. So I'm going to divide both by 2 just to see. And then I have 14 divided by 2 gave me 7. And the 16 divided by 2 gives me 8. And I notice there is no other number. So my final answer is this 7/8 or 7/8, pronounced 7/8. So again, we rewrote the number as we're comfortable. We find equivalent fractions by finding common denominators. Then we take those equivalent fractions, we substitute them from the original, we add, and then we simplify. I want you to pause this video now and write down all of our notes in our notebooks. Now that we have that in our notebooks, let's go over another problem. So here again, we're writing it as the way we typed because most, like I said, most systems do not have mathematical equations that you can. Some do. And as time goes on, more and more programs are having it, but right now we do have a lot of programs that don't. So this is how we would type it. So again, I'm going to rewrite the fractions the way I'm used to working with them vertically. I'm just rewriting them in the way that I am comfortable and looking at it. Now that I have that, I need to find equivalent fractions. By doing that is finding common denominators. Again, I'm going to go over in class other ways of finding common denominators, but for now, this is the way we're doing it in this video. We rewrite the numbers on the side, and then for 5, 6, the opposite denominator is a 3. So I'm going to multiply both of them by 3. 5 times 3 is 15, and 6 times 3 is 18. So now that I have that in on my sketch, I could use this. So I have 2/3. The opposite denominator is 6. So I'm going to multiply both of these by 6. 2 times 6 is 12, and 3 times 6 is 18. So now I notice I have 2 18s, so I can continue now working. And I could substitute my original number with our equivalent fractions that we created with the same denominator. So 5/6 became 15 eighteenths. So I'm going to rewrite that 15 eighteenths. I'm going to bring down my plus sign. The 2/3, my equivalent fraction, is 12 over 18, or 12 eighteenths. And now I can add them, right? I can do 15 plus 12. Both of those are the same denominator, so I can compare them, right? 15 plus 12 gives me 27. So I have 27 over 18. So now I look at this and I go, this is an improper fraction. 27 is larger than 18. So I know I at least have one whole number in there. So I could work on the side and I go, 18 plus 18, right? Because that would be 2 wholes. So 8 plus 8 is 16. Bring down the 6, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So that's 36. 36 is larger than 27. So I know that there's only one whole number. So if I did that and I go 27 minus 18, 2 becomes a 1, and then the 7 becomes a 17. 17 minus 8 is 9. So now that I'm left with the 9 pieces left over, so I have 9 over 18. And I look and I go, I have 9 and 18. I could divide both by 3, but I also know that 9 times 2 is 18 by my divisional facts. So instead of dividing this by 3, I'm going to actually divide them both by 9 because I know that 9 goes into 18 evenly. So I'm left with one whole number. 9 divided by 9 is 1. 18 divided by 9 is 2. So I know that my final answer is 1 1/2. Remember, the whole number to the fraction, in between there is that decimal. So we use the word and when we separate the whole number to the fraction. So it's 1 1/2. So again, what we did was we rewrote the fraction in the way we're usually able to see it. We found equivalent fractions with the same denominator. Then we added, then we simplified it. All right, we pulled out the whole number and then we divided to make it the smallest number. We could have divided first and then simplified in a whole number, whichever way you're comfortable with is what you may use. So I want you to pause this video now and I want you to write in your notebook all of our problems and our work so that we have something to reference by. Now we've done 3 problems and I want you to try on your own. So here are 2 problems. Now I know you're not used to seeing it this time, so I'm going to actually rewrite this by hand so that you know. So this is really saying it's 4 over 9 plus 1 over 3. So 4/9 plus 1/3. Okay? And then this one is 5/8 plus 3/5. We need to find out what these both equal. So I want you to write the questions in your notebook showing all of your work, right? So we have to find the equivalent fractions, then we substitute the equivalent fractions, then we add, and then we simplify. If you need to rewatch this video, you may, as many times as you need to. But make sure you show all of your work and all of your attempts so that you may receive full credit.